Now, I'd like to start at this point with the Honorable Mahama Yariga on the aftermath of the flood. He has been leading a team ensuring that the right thing is done to avoid a future occurrence. But let's begin with the memorial observance, where the President had a bit to say as he mourned the death. He disclosed that so far now the official number of the death is 163, even though that remains something that may change in the course of events. But as we know by now, the rescue efforts have ended, and so we do not know of any additional numbers that are coming in. Well, I like to say the memorial service itself, did you expect that in the manner in which it was conducted? You had the reverend ministers and all of them. Did you expect that it will help some of the victims who didn't die, and then their relations to be able to begin to come to terms with what has happened?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I believe all of us on this panel will once again collectively express our condolences to the bereaved families and our sympathies to the injured ones, and our well wishes for them that they recover from their injuries as soon as possible, and also to continue to urge the national effort, which has been bipartisan so far, has been national in character, to mobilize resources and support to them. And then also that we will continue to think about how to ensure that the support to the children and those for whom the bereaved, the deceased are responsible, the support for them will not just finish with the mourning, but that we have long-term programs to support their children through education and support members of their families to really heal. What you saw at the memorial service definitely should contribute to the effort to get the bereaved families to accept what has happened. The clergy were at their best in trying to let people understand that this is a highly religious nation, and in times like this, we will have to accept that God has His design for everything and for everyone and for every nation. And this is one such design that He has had for us. And those who have suffered should look up to God for consolation. And then, of course, we as fellow Ghanaians will do our best to console them. So I think that the memorial service, the way it was conducted, the show of support, the expression of remorse across the country, I think all those would go a long way to help the bereaved families. We know for sure that their losses will be irreplaceable no matter what we do.
Right.
And we know also that they will live with it for a very long time, but at least the nation has expressed its support to them.
Well, what do you say of the relief efforts so far? Various individuals and corporate organizations, including, of course, Joy FM that started the very first one. What do you say about those efforts reaching out to the people? And I must really correct that the President had put the figure at 152 lives.
Yeah, the relief effort is okay. I hope that in the coming days we see more effort in that direction. NADMO is quite experienced in these matters, and I have been in touch with the then acting boss of NADMO, and they were working on the statistics, so want to know the statistics. And then also, I'm sure in future we'll all be interested in knowing how the resources were deployed. And it should cut across both the government agencies that are taking the relief support, and then also the private institutions that have put in place programs for mobilizing resources for relief. At the end of the day, the key thing is accountability. Let's make sure that our accountability mechanisms are accurate. Otherwise, it might even hurt family members more to feel that people are profiting on the back of their pain and suffering.
Right.
And that could be more painful than the fact that they've
that's
lost
a genuine
family members. So
right,
a relief effort is okay. Accountability, however, is critical.
Right.
And deploying it to the right people is equally very critical.
Great. And Kweku, I don't know what you think. It does appear that people rather, in even corporate organizations, rather trust private entities to be the centers where these relief efforts should be coordinated, rather than the NADMO, which is the state agency.
Very curious, very, very unfortunate. There appears to be some truth in what you are saying, and that might be because perhaps over the years, NADMO has not perhaps discharged its responsibilities in such a manner as to its people. That may be one side of the coin. Or we have not come to appreciate.
Okay, sorry, I understand I have a little difficulty with your microphone. I'll come back to you. Nana, if you can take up that sentiment expressed by some people that they felt that the majority of the donations that are coming through should rather be going to NADMO, which will do a coordinated process. But something, they cannot trust NADMO, and that's why they are taking it elsewhere, rather.
Well, you can trust NADMO only to an extent. You can't trust them fully. I don't think it's their fault. NADMO is a political organization. That is what we have turned it into across governments. I mean, in the NPP time. Because you appoint political actors to head that organization, they necessarily will take political considerations in their work. So if they have 10 items, whilst about 7 would go to genuine victims, you will find out that about 3 would go to people who are just political actors. It has been like that. It's not just, as we speak, if you go to Okankwe South, as we speak, if you take your reporters there is some relief items that are being shared at the office near the sub-metro. And you go there and you find a lot of NDC activists today as we speak. So NADMO has been politicized.
You mean you will find activists who are not victims of the flood or fire?
You send your reporters there now. Maybe because I've said this, by the time you get there, they would have run away. But they are there at the near dance bar, near the sub-metro office. But I'm saying that it is quite normal. It is quite normal. They come to an area, they look for the political party influential person there who would have his own list. But a lot of it will go to the relief, genuine people. But because of the political nature, that's the way it's been operating. So that's it. So it is important that private institutions come in to supplement, because there will be people or organizations who would not give to NADMO because of this nature of NADMO.
Okay.
And so the private institutions allow those people to also contribute to the relief efforts.
Okay. Let's listen to the President's John Dramani Mahama on his talk about forensic and DNA that has to be done on some of the dead, so that their relatives will be able to identify them and have a closure to this part of their lives.
We're still in the process of identifying the dead. To that end, government has given authorization for DNA tests to be conducted on the bodies from the disaster that have not yet been identified. This will allow families that are unsure of the fates of their members and who are still not accounted for to be able to bring DNA samples so confirmation can be made. With this official confirmation, claims can be quickly granted for the return of their loved ones' remains.
And the president said additionally that the loss our nation has suffered is incomprehensible, and that in each of the persons that have been lost, he says, with each number there is a name, there is a face, and there is a story. With each number there are dreams, hopes, and achievements that have died. This number is still provisional, the 152 that he gave. Kwaku, do we have a history of being able to do this and do it in the manner the president is suggesting, that DNA samples will be used to be able to identify, you know, the dead and their relatives?
Well, I don't think it's beyond us. I think we have enough human resource and even the equipment in terms of the infrastructure. In recent times, we've been developing this in over a period. So that shouldn't be a difficulty at all. I mean, because those who can't find their relations, especially in the wake of the fire and floods, should clearly visit those hospitals where the corpses were taken to, the mortuaries. Once the dead bodies are there, they can do the DNA on them. Take DNA of those who are in search of relatives. If they match, it goes through. It's science.
Right.
So I don't think that's a huge challenge at all.
Okay. And a small one on the issue of the NADMO matter. How do you think that they can overcome that situation so that in future we should all be, you know, heading towards their end with our donations?
Yes, all of us as a people should begin to think of how to enhance the capacity of NADMO and also its integrity, you know, so that people can appreciate it in a more positive way. I mean, let's not pretend that they haven't done anything at all since it was set up.
Right.
There are many good things they have done. There may be the political aspect that Akomia alluded to, which again cuts across the political divide. So, but that I don't think should be a serious issue to undermine the integrity and capacity of an otherwise important and crucial body like NADMO. But let me be honest with you. My view, and I think Ayariga even alluded to that point, in terms of the monies, funds, fundraising, we should centralize it. Yes, people can initiate mobilization of funds on their own, but I believe we should designate a bank or some banks that those monies must go under the canopy of the disaster fund. You remember the stadium disaster fund, the May 9th, 2001. At the end of the day, the government set up a stadium disaster fund that had a board of trustees. And indeed, the monies were kept in the Bank of Ghana. They are still there, year in, year out. Monies are calculated and disbursements are made. Sometimes I hear a lot of people making noise that Jacob Bichabilam Kufuor should come and account. That's an uneducated, ignorant input, part of the propaganda nonsense. But the truth of the matter is that at the Bank of Ghana today is that fund managed by the Bank of Ghana. And I suspect, subject to the auditing processes of the audit service. And year in, year out, I've been doing a lot of playback. I realized that the Board of Trustees every year, around about May 9th, issues reports on what they've been doing. You know, some of the children of the disease are being catered for, even to the tertiary level, okay? Some monies are given out to those who were registered, their children registered, those in school. So here, I have brought some here. They pay their school fees. They give them money and things. It may not be that much, but you see, that is the idea. It means that we have had an experience, because that May 9th was a huge disaster, if you recall. We lost about 127 people in this country. And so that's there. The president is there. And haven't we set up a relief fund for this particular thing? I thought government announced something.
Yes, there's one at the national level also, separate from NADMO.
Yes.
And so far, I think, is it the Ghana Commercial Bank, is it the GMPC or ADB, they have all made
all
donations.
those money should be centralized. They should go to a central location, and an independent body set up for that purpose.
Right.
Because you see, beyond this, we're going to look at those who have lost their families, their bereaved families. We're going to look at children who perhaps will need some support from the state, okay? And all those things. Of course, immediately the medical bills and all those things, I'm told government said should be taken care of, just like May 9th, 2001. Now, as for relief services, in terms of what Joy FM is doing, it's difficult, but I would have wished, in principle, ideally, I would have wished if all those things are going to be centralized and sent to NADMO for NADMO to do the agency to do it.
I find that even multimedia or Joy is becoming overwhelmed by the donations and how to take them to the ground.
Because I don't think you have the requisite capacity.
Yes.
You are displaying a positive human spirit. That's good. Humanitarianism. That's what you are displaying.
As we're walking here this morning, you see truckloads of relief items that have been covered.
Yes, I've seen some even here, quite a lot. That's good. But let's have experts, people trained to deploy and to supply these things to relief targets. That's more important than just showing the human spirit, which is also admirable, let me be honest.
Right. Now, Kuku is talking about the need for coordination of these reliefs. I don't know if you have any idea what specific reliefs should go to the people, or this sort of, handouts that we're giving them in piecemeal and all of that. But more importantly, are we following the law in setting up the funds all over around, asking people to donate to them? In this country, there's a law that regulates that. You should be able to seek a certain permission, register, and be able now to take the funds.
Yes, I think you've answered it. And I was going to go into it. I even have a difficulty with the nature of NADMO itself. It should not just be an institution that will be seen to be working after a disaster. There should be an institution backed by a legal framework which should be assigned functions and which would not only be responsible for disasters aftermath of a disaster, but even the prevention, if it's possible, because some of them can be prevented, or that if we do the best that we have been assigned to do, we can even reduce the effect or the consequence.
The name of that organization is disaster management.
That is why, but it's not even backed by law, is it? There's no legal framework.
I'll be surprised.
Oh,
I'll be surprised.
Yes, I will too, except that maybe the process of appointment of the persons there may give cause for your suspicion.
Listen, I have checked, and it has not. I've not been able to confirm that.
Okay.
But I'll be
I'll be surprised.
very happy if. But then what I'm saying is
I'll check too.
That may be the name, all right. But there's nothing wrong with even amending whatever legal framework or convention that has led to its establishment to also include preventive measures as well. Then also, there should not just be ad hoc funds after a disaster. We should have a permanent fund into which regularly well-meaning Ghanaians, institutions should be paying some monies into.
There's the act that establishes the National Disaster Management Organization, Act 517.
That's
so
right.
the act that establishes it. But then let me just add that as we speak, we're going through a process of reviewing the act to transform it, I believe, into a National Disaster Management Authority. And then that is because of the observations in terms of the weaknesses of the organization, both in terms of governance and in terms of the way that it manages disaster and its national reach. And so, as I speak, I think we must have approved the process in cabinet, and I won't be surprised if the bill gets to Parliament very soon.
All right, so thank you.
But you see, I have a little concern. See, our problem is not the lack of institutions. You see, NADMO has been set up because you can't prevent natural disasters. So when it happens, NADMO has been set up to deal with the issues after.
Right.
But in terms of the prevention through planning and proper settlements and all of that, there are so many institutions in this country. There are so many laws in this country. The problem is that the institutions don't seem to work.
Okay, so we'll deal with those separately.
Or probably the persons in charge don't seem to work.
Right, the same.
All right, so the point I'm making, there should be a national fund, permanent fund, into which monies may be paid, whether at the national level, at the private level in terms of companies or individuals, so that what Joy FM is doing now is not just because there's a disaster, but it means that people want to willingly give. Because there are thousands or even a couple of million people who are still suffering and need some of these. But if there is no disaster, nobody organizes these things for the widows or victims, relatives, and dependents.
And you find that even in the Jamefe report, commission report, there's a need for when we have tournaments for the fundraising activities to be coordinated in such a way that it will be subject to audit by the state.
Yes.
We have a law that says if you want to raise funds to support any such, situation, it should be subject to this process. The people who are taking all the monies and doing all they are not accountable to anybody.
Yes.
Now you see, the point is making is captured in the bill that Ayaraga was alluding to.
Okay.
Because I remember hearing the president at one of the public functions indicated that a national disaster management fund is to be created as part of this new. Am I right?
Yes, it is.
So it's a positive idea.
Right.
Okay.
Very interesting thoughts there. Thank you very much. Your text messages are welcome. 1422. That's the text line. You can also post your comments on our Facebook wall, and we will share them with the rest of the world. Now, let's quickly go to also look at this video. Then we'll come back or listen to Mahama Ayariga, and then we'll come back to look at the measures that are being taken and ask whether they are knee-jerk and that's what they are, or that they mean something substantial going forward in preventing these disasters.
This is going to be a continuous exercise. Now, as we go around, as you can see, we check and see what should be done and what should not be done. And then those that they shouldn't do, we give them directives. We will come back to check whether they are complying. If they are not complying, the enforcement officers will come. If it means bringing a grader or anything to do it and then billing you, we'll do that. But if after a few days we come in and you haven't done it, we'll do it ourselves and then we'll bill you to pay. If you don't pay, we'll shut down your station.
Government has accepted the recommendations of the Commission to assign implementation.
All right, thank you very much, and forgive us, my production team was in a hurry to add the Jamefe committee report for discussion. Now, you are going out with a task force. So you've been to filling stations. We understand that you have made certain orders at these filling stations. Some of them you have asked them to shut down their restaurants. And what exactly are you seeking to achieve?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the death toll that we've experienced following the floods would not have been the numbers that we are looking at, but for the explosion at the fuel station.
Right.
Normally with floods, 1 or 2 people,
We have had 8 people die. We have had the highest, I think, about 20 or so.
Precisely. But this time, the situation was aggravated by the fuel station explosion. So the immediate thing that the president directed that we should do is to go around and make sure, because we're really not out of the woods yet. It could rain today, it could rain tomorrow. So immediately you need to take steps to make sure that installations that can pose serious danger in case of flooding, you address the situation there. And fuel stations are, one such set of installations that we need to go. So that's why we marched out quickly to check the stations around and give the appropriate directives so that we can remove the danger. And in case of flooding, we
How far are you going?
That. Across the country, immediately we've directed the regional ministers, the municipal chief executives. I'm going around. The Minister for Petroleum is going around. we've asked everybody who can assist to go around, and we've asked neighborhoods to even text. So every morning I receive, loads of text messages. My Facebook receives a lot of directions, and each time I send it to appropriate regional EPA officer or some members of the task force and say, check this issue. I mean, for some neighborhoods, there's fear. People have become suddenly apprehensive about fuel stations. There's a story about a man who called his wife, and she said she was on her way home, and he said, Oba to Lipton or go full. They say, "Oh, person ukumo." Do you want to kill me? so there's a general apprehension and fear, and we need to deal with that also. It's genuine, it's legitimate. We need to deal with that, even if you drive there, you see it, and then you explain to the neighborhoods that, look, by all standards, the appropriate measures have been put in place to make sure that you are safe, and that in case of an accident, it doesn't extend to
So
you.
What are you looking out for so that I will be educated to assist you?
Yeah, first and foremost, we are looking out for, do they even have a permit to be where they are? There are several filling stations that don't have a permit. And
you mean that?
Yes, and I was surprised to find out. So when we get them, we ask them for a permit, then they will go inside the office and they will come out 3 times, and then the explanation is that the guy who is keeping the key to the safe is not there. But then the law is that display the permit where anybody, not just EPA officers, can see. So there are many that don't have permits, and we've asked those ones to shut down. We've asked those ones who we think,
Okay, so let's be clear here. There are about 3 different levels at which they are supposed to get permits, or even 4. First, the EPA permits. They also need the area town planning authorities approval. They need the fire permit from the fire service, and then ultimately the NPA. Which ones are you looking for? All of them?
We check for EPA permits.
Okay, because that's the number one.
That is usually the most critical, because once you get the EPA permit, chances are that NPA will give you the license to retail.
Right.
So we're looking out for EPA permits. Town and country planning is also under our ministry, so we check whether the decision of town and country planning to allow the place to be used as a fuel station is right. It has to be a commercial area. Many stations are sited right in the heart of residential areas. You go there and you find out that somehow the owners of the stations have managed to convince the town and country planning officers to rezone that one plot of land in the middle of people's residential homes into a commercial area to enable the person to now site a fuel station. Sometimes you find out that they have managed to convince the EPA officer in the region to be permitted to site a fuel station, and that ultimately they're actually holding a license from the NPA. So we're looking at that. The fact that you have a license, the fact that the regional EPA officer has recommended and the national have given you, issued you a permit, and the fact that the area has been rezoned for commercial use, which enables you to site a fuel station, doesn't mean that that fuel station is sited at the right place. It means that all the people in the chain did not do their work, either due to negligence, either due to incompetence, or due to other influences that I cannot give evidence of now, but I can smell it. So basically, that is how we're going about the task. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we have a meeting, the NPA, the EPA, Ministry of Petroleum, our ministry, and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, because Standards Board is also involved in this exercise. And we are initiating a program to do a thorough national audit.
We understand also that the EPA itself, even before the flood or the disaster, had ordered the stop of all new filling stations that are being built.
Absolutely, indeed. I mean, you know that recently we had the explosions at the gas stations. So we're really looking at that. And, a week before the disaster, I'd actually requested for the list of fuel stations across the country from NPA. And NPA was in the process of compiling that for me, and I had communicated to the oil marketing companies that we were about to do a national exercise of auditing the stations to make sure that environmentally they were all compliant. In fact, we're in the process. I had communicated to the president. The chairman of the oil marketing company had assured me that he was holding a meeting at around Christ the King that day, and he will brief all members. And then 2 days later, this incident occurred. Okay. So this was something that was already planned, was going to be executed, and then this incident occurred. But it has created a situation where there's overwhelming public support for the actions that we are taking. And then also there's some level of cooperation from the fuel station owners, all the stations that we've directed that.
So what are some of the actions that you're going to be doing? What are some of the sanctions, for example, that are going to apply?
A number of sanctions could apply. I mean, for most of them that we think are very bad, we've said cease operations. For some stations where we think they should just remove the other added-on activities.
Like the restaurants.
Like the restaurants.
Where there's a lot of fire
the
activity.
Chinchinga bar and sport, and, you know, in the evenings they turn the fuel station into a sort of nightclub and that kind of thing, or a joint where there's so much entertainment. And so those ones, we've asked them to remove those activities from the fuel station and leave the station
I thought
alone.
that by the law and by the NPA's own regulations that were made pursuant to the NPA law, you are able to do these other activities like a restaurant and the rest, but the material that you're going to use to put up those buildings are dictated by the authority.
Well, it's a question of the design of the place. If you design the facility in such a way that you've made adequate arrangements to minimize the incidence of an accident occurring, or that in case of an accident, you have minimized the impact of the accident. All that is dictated by the design of the facility. So it is not impossible to have a restaurant around a fuel station. It's all a question of how have you located the different activities on that piece of land. What are the distances? What are the buffers? Is that okay? What are the safety measures that you have put in place? So the auditing looks at all these things. So there are some situations where indeed they have a permit to have, you know, a restaurant nearby, but then you will see that the distance from the restaurant to where the underground tanks are, you know, is reasonably spaced, that there might be a wall between the two activities so that an accident does not easily spill over to where. So there are all sort of rules and regulations in terms of the siting and the design and the location of the different activities. And so when we get to a station, we look at all that before we then give the appropriate directives.
Okay. Now, just hold on there. And I gave him all the opportunity to be able to take us through because he is at the forefront leading this particular task force. But where they have gone already issued directives and orders for restaurants to be shut down and the rest, you don't foresee that some of these people will begin to take up legal issues, go to court, where you are saying they should close down and the rest, because they have all the requisite permits, including perhaps some of them would have had what is required because by the policies that are brought out by the NPA, when you want to do a restaurant or other such, you know, activities for service purposes, they give you what they call a special approval, which will require a special methodology for the building, and they will supervise it. So if they have gone through all of that.
And you're right, and I think it's been a problem with the petroleum sector in particular, where there are so many institutions with different or sometimes even similar overlapping functions, including even the Lands Commission. Because the Lands Commission even comes in, the NPA, and I'm looking at their act, the EPA, Town and Country Planning, all these,
Ghana
National Fire Service, they all come in. But the lack of coordination, which may not be the fault of either of them, but because under this system, there should be a consolidated legal framework, which will then spell out the functions of all these institutions under one act, for example. So, for example, and I think it is not also so much about whether people have permits, because usually they would, or they are inclined to obtain. But it's for me, I see it in relation to the filling station as the non-performance of NPA, for example, because one key function of NPA is to initiate and conduct investigations into standards of quality of petroleum products offered to consumers, but more importantly, investigate on regular basis the operations of petroleum service providers to ensure conformity with practice and protocols in the petroleum downstream industry. And elsewhere, you must see a certificate from the NPA that at least on 1st April we were here. We have certified that they continue to comply with the relevant laws of the country. So, because people will usually take liberties, especially where economics are involved. And so the regular investigations and visitations are very much important. And so I will wish that my friend Barima Osei will ensure this kind of coordination, because otherwise then we will fall into legal issues being brought about, and then everybody may even get confused. At the end of the day, people may have to pay a lot of fees. As for that, the lawyers, I'm sure.
You see, and in regard to what he just said, and connected to the question I asked you about having these restaurants and the stuff around there, my very good friend Kojo Youngson sends me this one. He says, on a serious note, I agree that stations without permit should be shut down. But I have questions about those next to businesses that operate open flames, like restaurants. When you go to other countries, filling stations are located everywhere, in urban areas, on street corners, even in supermarket forecourts. BP stations in the UK have wild bean calves in the stations themselves. So when we give them the specifications, and they abide by them, and they build a restaurant, and the next day we go and want to pull it down or ask them to stop, we might get into trouble.
Of course, that obviously may be a problem that we may be faced. That is why I was worried that just a day or two after, or even in the course of the visitation by the various institutions, a filling station or a property that was being put up for that purpose was to be pulled down. And I'm saying that if we don't take steps that will ensure that we have verified and we are very sure of the outcome of even that verification, we will end up creating even more problems for ourselves, which will lead to our limited resources now being used to pay off. And it has happened before, to pay the so-called judgment debt. So it's important that first, even those who issued the various permits should put together a report on all these filling stations, because there must be a file for a particular filling station that has obtained permit. And there should be a database. It should even be easy for all of us, as I said, to go to a filling station and verify whether or not this is a safe place to be. Elsewhere, when you are in an institution and you hear that health and safety inspectors are coming tomorrow, it is as if it's the judgment day. Because the least they find, which is in contravention of the law, you are just going to be in serious trouble.
Right.
So I think we should look at an institution. If we have to have a central health and safety organization, that would be the overseer or the monitor of all these, not just a filling station, because it goes beyond that.
Right.
Restaurants and so on. I think it can be a good idea. Then we coordinate all these efforts, give them the functions, the necessary facilities and resources to perform. Otherwise, if this one is going to check whether NPA has given a permit, this one goes to check whether EPA has given a permit, whether fire service facilities there are up to date, there will be a problem. Because then the coordination will be absent.
All right. Nana, you've been in government before and held several offices in that regard. There's this academic paper I have been reading. It's about building permit acquisitions in Ghana, and it was done by some students at the KNUST, and they did it on Kumasi alone. And it reveals, they did it I think in 2010, and it reveals that in Kumasi, in the Ashanti region, in Kumasi, about 80% of the buildings there don't have permits. And they trace the problems to the delays at the various places to acquire the permit. The law says that if you put in the application and 3 months on, you still don't have a reply, you can go and commence your work. Is this not why we have all these buildings without permits?
Yes, Samson, the delay in delivering the public service is part of the problem. But you see, it is just a symptom of a much more bigger problem. The bigger problem, in my view, is just executive failure. Failure at the executive level over the period. Because some official who's supposed to give you a permit, you've satisfied, you've gone, bought the application, filled the application, paid the fees and all of that. They delay you because they want to extort money, more monies from you. But you see, there is a service charter which is supposed to guide delivery of public services. Jerry Rawlins's time, it was launched. It was supposed to be operational up to today. So a service charter will say that, for example, service charter on passports. This is what you must do. If within 3 months you don't get your passport, it should move beyond the passport office to an organization that can require or ask why there hasn't been performance. And we've launched this service charter, I'm saying, Jerry Rawlins this time, 20 years ago. It doesn't work. So I'm saying that all of these delays by petty civil servants, public servants, is just a symptom of a bigger problem, the problem of executive failure over the period. We have, look, I saw this in my car boot the last time. This is the law, the LI on minerals and mining. Look, it's about 1.5 inches thick. This is it. Just minerals and mining. And Galamsey goes on, they don't even hide it. And look, this is it. It's about 1 inch thick, 600 pages or so. You see? But it's not enforced. Look, this...
So to the extent that, Nana, we have, say, in Kumasi alone, we have over 80% of the structures or buildings that do not have permits. Can this be an effective way of checking the situation, going about demolishing structures?
Then you demolish half of Kumasi, which is not practical. For what? No, yeah, or half of Accra, you demolish them. Look, the law says, and I'm sure Ayariga will confirm, you shouldn't build within 100 feet of a storm drain.
Yeah.
That's the law. That is the law. 100 feet is about 30 meters. Check all the storm drains in Accra. Just Accra. The Nima storm drain, the Asalam Dam storm drain, the Onyasia, the Mukose, even the Udo itself, which is not a storm drain, but a river. There are buildings very next to the Udo. Now, so if you're going to apply the law now, then you pull down half the city, or even 2/3 of the city. The other thing is, as I mentioned it earlier when I was commenting on my friends, we have every law in this country. We have every institution in this country. This place that you are, I think this is part of it. There's AMA, which is the city-wide. But your location is under the Usuklote sub-metro. They are supposed to ensure that nuisance doesn't occur. There's a director of the sub-metro, there's a director of planning, there's a director of everything. They have it there. They've been given motorcycles. So you have to be able to fish out who is responsible in the area where the nuisance has occurred and punish them.
Okay. So the punishment should not be limited to the owners of the filling stations and houses, but those who are supposed to
ensure that the illegal activity does not happen. They are not punished. I mean, Ayariga is saying that there are fuel stations that actually have permits. but you can see clearly that the rules have been bent. So whose signature is on that permit? That person should be fished out. All of them paraded and made to answer why you gave a permit to this person or that organization in breach of the laws, or why you didn't give a permit when this person has clearly satisfied the requirements, so that public officials can sit up. You see, so when you do that in Osuklote, his colleague, director of buildings at Ladade Kotopon, will sit up and say, hey, these people now, they are serious. So when he is given a permit for some kiosks to be put on the pavement, he will reason.
And the group, including the EPA that is assisting him to go about, executing what this task force is supposed to do, they are also required by law to do certain regular inspections. Are they saying all the period they have not been inspecting, or that they have been inspecting, but they don't see the problems that they are now leading him around and identifying?
It is the same problem. For the inspections are done, but the corners are cut. Because this, yes, you see, because this, the fuel station at SEC, which is at the center of this problem. Understand there was an inspection 3 months ago. There was an inspection 3 months ago. So EPA or whoever did the inspection 3 months ago and didn't see that the valves of the underground tanks are not tight enough. Where is that person?
Well, that we are told is a prejudicial, comments that's been made by the fire service. So we should hold on. We shouldn't say that is the problem. It's not because the valves were loose.
No, as for the cause of the fire, we don't know if some people say it's from somebody's generator, but the fuel coming up to the surface of the water definitely was coming from the underground tanks.
The cars parked there also could have been leaking. A lot of cars, even with their engines on. Indeed, that is a doubtful area. I think
it could also be that because of the disaster nature of the situation, you cannot blame them.
Okay, so it could be that the petrol had leaked from the what is it? The cars parked there. It could be. It could be.
It could have leaked from the tank itself, but because of the special situation that it was encountered.
For petrol to be on the quantities that is required to cover the huge expanse of water, for it to be able to boil independently, it must be a huge volume. I would doubt if it comes from small engines in the neighborhood. But it comes back to the same issue, that there's executive failure, one, in implementing the laws, in ensuring compliance of the laws. If we can implement 40% of the laws we have in this country, look, we'll be like anywhere else. And people say it's the attitude of Ghanaians. What kind of attitude? The same Ghanaian who will bring out his stuff and urinate at the drain at Seka, when he goes to some other country, he doesn't even think of it, because he knows that the system works.
Okay.
But here it doesn't work.
Before I go to Keku and take a break, Mr. Yaga, obviously, he says this is executive failure, and it's not referring to just this administration, but you just even realize you have actually, by your action, admitted that this is what it is.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even matter if he limits it to this administration. The truth of the matter is that there's failure by institutions that are responsible for enforcement. The mistake we often make is that we look at things from a political lens, but these institutions that are really responsible for enforcement are non-political in character. They're actually our own bureaucracy. They're actually our own institutions that are technical in character. The failure has often been the failure of the leadership to supervise them and make sure that they do the right thing. Like he indicated, there must be penal consequences when there is obvious dereliction of duty. If that dereliction of duty is due to incompetence, then there is a need to remove the person there so that a more competent person, goes there. If the failure is due to some inducements that is not acceptable, then there's a need for obvious penalties to follow. So clearly, there's been institutional failure across board, starting from the planning authorities to the permitting authorities, and then of course the supervision of the work that they need to do. And that is why we must all now sit up. It is never too late to make an effort to correct the system.
Right.
And I hope that with this kind of loss of lives, we'll all sit up and work together and try and then reverse the level of deterioration that we see in terms of our institutions and their functioning.
It does look to me like there's a need for a certain drastic, revolutionary approach at those who are giving permits and everything else. Because if I got a land today, and it has to take me years to be able to start my project on it, I will not do that because someone else may come onto it and disturb me. How should we go forward? Solutions.
Well, I'm not an expert. You don't expect me to give you a technically competent response, because I'm not. It's below me. Yes, it's completely above me, rather. Okay. But let me put out there my street understanding of the issues. See, it's good that we are taking a comprehensive look at these fuel stations and where they are situated. It's good. I think before the floods, people had been complaining a lot about the mushrooming of these things in residential areas, in different areas, even though, as we've indicated here, you travel abroad, you have filling stations at different places, hotels, near residents and the rest. It's the standards that we must check of these fuel stations, especially if they have permits. Now,
and Kwaku, sorry, before you continue, the GOIL wants us to know that their station does not have valves. It has a sealed manhole, and this is coming from GOIL management.
That's true, but I was going to go to that point, that whilst we are looking at all this general thing, we must be careful that we don't end up making it look as if the station that was at the impact, the explosion, was actually guilty of anything. We haven't reached there, because what I have heard, the few checks that I have made, that in recent times, in terms of their evaluation by the MPA, they had and these are all technical things, those who know can understand, but I'm told that calibration, they had valid regulatory permits for calibration of 4 of their U-tanks. This is from 2013 to 2016, in good shape. They also had done pressure test of the U-tanks 2013. They had certificate of insurance that is issued January 2015. The MPA did a checklist. They have questions, over 113 questions. That station scored 93%. So its grade is grade A. The integrity of the U-tanks is for 20 years. Okay? So let's not create the impression that in this particular instance, the fuel station was the problem.
Let me just come in.
Yeah, please.
Beyond the integrity of the infrastructure, there are required steps you take in emergency situations. If there's flooding at your station, there are measures you need to take in terms of evacuation of third parties who find themselves and etc. No, I'm just adding.
We shouldn't pretend.
No, I'm not. I think it's important.
No, but let me make my point.
That beyond the issue of the integrity of your infrastructure, there are emergency steps. There are steps you take in emergencies. Flooding is one such emergency. Did you take those steps? These are all questions that you will be asked, not just the integrity of your infrastructure.
You can do that, but for me, that's completely an unfair question to ask. That's where perhaps the National Disaster Management machinery itself would have to come in. It's them you can call to come and do the evacuation. At that material moment, when it was raining and people are seeking refuge and shelter at that particular place, you are expecting the management on the location, that is the fuel station, to go into an evacuation exercise. They don't even have the capacity in this sense. That one is the responsibility of a broader national response.
No. Listen, let me come. For instance,
I don't know why you are contesting
this is important, and we've been educating people on this even as we go out there. For instance, if it is flooding your station, we don't even expect you to admit people who want to buy petroleum products.
No, it's very practical.
It's very practical.
It wasn't going to work.
The emergency nature of the situation.
Listen,
you are talking
these are not ideal. These are steps that they've been told.
But if it's flooding, you don't admit
it was
people
raining.
into
The one who's supposed to do that is himself.
there's a difference between.
I mean,
there's a
let's be realistic. What I'm saying is that what you are saying is not a realistic proposition.
There's a difference between when it is just raining, is that okay? And when you can see that your station is flooding, and then people are coming in wanting to buy fuel, you're actually admitting them. And in the flood,
I'm not sure that was a situation.
For the education of the public, for the education of the public,
right?
That when it is flooding at a particular fuel station, don't even try to buy fuel at that station.
Okay.
And immediately that station should close and make sure that they prevent people from coming into the fuel station to buy. This is for the education of the public.
Yes.
But like you're saying, there's a whole lot of rules that are being violated.
Yes.
They are supposed to build, the restaurants and things are supposed to be fire resistant.
Yes.
You have gone to see they are not, and so you're asking them to shut down.
Yes, you see, I don't know why Yarega wanted to contest the submission I was making. If he was seeking to complement it, fair deal.
No, I'm complimenting it.
Yes, fair deal. But
I'm not finding fault with a specific.
Yes, because
station,
in the end we know that
as you said,
supplied education.
Investigation is going on. Let's not make prejudicial, findings about the station.
If we were to enhance the national capacity in terms of emergency and disaster management, so that there's that evacuation capacity, all the station would have to do is perhaps make a call to that agency for them to come with their vehicles as well as even helicopters and things to come and airlift people from there. No station will have the capacity immediately, in the instant case, to do that evacuation matter. Even if they were to close the place up, nobody can stop those who are coming to park their vehicles there. People running to go and seek cover. It's not a realistic proposition.
I have very strong views on this matter that I think.
Listen,
I have very strong views.
And he doesn't want to stop.
Please, listen carefully. You see, given the situation we find ourselves, any filling station that is serving the public, and it is raining, and they are still serving the public, and they observe,
did you see that? Did you see them serving the public?
Listen.
And the cars that were packed, they were not going for fuel.
Listen carefully.
And now you are saying that the education is that they should actually stop.
Yes, I'm saying that.
So they're not
if you are a filling station and then there's flooding and the vehicles rather think that your place is where to go to, you should let them know that this is rather a more dangerous place to be. And therefore you should get out and look for a better place. That's the point that I'm making.
Wake up to.
We can't justify that.
We're taking a break at this point, and when we return, we'll tell you a few things. Also, we are learning that the voting has been suspended in Adenta, and also in Shama, voting has been suspended, Shama in the Western region. We'll bring you some updates on the primaries that are going on in the NPP. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. And let me tell you about First Green Energy Company Limited. They are the only energy company that is supplying and installing gas generators for domestic, commercial, and industrial use. And they have brands like Cummins, Caterpillar, Boats, and Steyr. Is it? Okay, they have all capacities for your energy backup. Reliability, if you're looking for reliability and effectiveness, if you want to avoid diesel and you want to avoid all other fuels, generators that dilutes the oil, which decreases the effectiveness of the oil to do its job in lubricating the engine cylinder walls, then this is what you should choose. There's a 1-year warranty, lesser pollution, and no more diesel, gasoline, fumes, and smell. 60% to 70% fuel running cost lower than petrol, diesel generator sets. So choose generators that run on LPG or biogas for the following benefits. That is fuel cost savings of 60% to 70%, reliable and stable power, easy to use, easy maintenance, reduce emissions in CO2, etc. And of course, they will make sure that your environment is green. So First Energy, Green Energy Company Limited. They are greening your environment. First Green Energy, innovation for green energy. You can call them and reduce your company's cost of production. The number to call is 0230-999-099. That's 0230-999-099 or 020-476-8551. 020-476-8551. Bank of Africa, they have products that are tailor-made for you. You can call Bank of Africa on 0244-338-226, 338-226, 0244, and discover a product that suits your lifestyle and business. Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Now, let me, I'm just going to share with you some of the messages that you've been sending in. But let me just take these very closing remarks on this issue in a minute each from my guest, and then we'll move on to the judgment, the commission, the Jamefe Commission report. Gentlemen, what can you say? Mahama has been giving a lot of, Mahama Yaga has been giving a lot of education, some of which we are all beginning to realize that we should rather pay a lot of attention to rather than run into a fuel station when it's raining and there's any indication of any disaster you avoid. Now, what would you say we should, as individuals, be doing to avoid some of these situations?
Well, I think first of all, the state must also endeavor to create parks. Because in this country, even where we had parks, they have converted them into commercial properties and so on. So if people can't get any place which is safe elsewhere, then they may have to take the risk, even though they may be aware of the consequences of that risk. If they had been turned away from the filling stage, where else would they have gone to? So you examine the risks and you decide to just try your luck, as it were. So I think that that will help a lot. But just quickly, I think sometimes we have to look at the laws again. If a law says that you should not build between a stone drain and your property, I think that it is a bit outdated. Go to Nzulezu. People are living on rivers. Elsewhere in the world, buildings are built right inside rivers. Why should even these drains be open in the first place? So if we don't make a law easy to be obeyed, then people will find other ways of not disobeying it.
Okay, thank you very much. I said a minute and I meant it. I understand that voting has resumed at Shama. Kuku, what's your prescription for all of us avoiding these things going forward?
Well, again, let me repeat that I don't have a technical answer to that. But I believe it's the drainage system, the inadequacy of it, the poverty of it, that is at the core of this matter. Okay? Because, you know, even if you took out the station where the impact, the explosion took place, many vehicles had been caught up in floods and were stationary. Some were even taken away into other drains. Okay? So that is the key. If we can resolve the infrastructure, cure that mischief, the water will flow easily. And there will be no need for people to even go and park their cars seeking refuge or shelter at fuel stations.
Very strangely, the Conti project, which was supposed to be a major impact to get us out of this situation, the Accra mayor reveals very strangely that after all the approvals had been, gotten from Parliament and elsewhere, and those who were the donors who were ready to give the money, the Exim Bank and the Standard Chartered Bank, the Finance Ministry did not do what had to be done. So that project has not taken off. Nana, how should we be looking at treating the victims and their relations? What should be the best approach to?
The setting up of a permanent fund along the lines of the stadium disaster should go a long way to meet it in the long term. Now, you ask about the way forward. Two things, in my view. One, let the laws work. let the laws work. Yesterday, last week or so, I heard one regional minister asking for the removal of speed ramps constructed on a highway. Speed ramps don't appear in 1 hour. So you allow the speed ramps to be constructed on the highway. And then 1 year after, you are going to ask them to remove it at extra cost. Why? Number two, we all know the main problem with Accra, the Odo Channel. Government has given many promises. You mentioned the Conti. I have look at this daily graphic in 2009, July 7. Government to tackle Accra floods, 2.5 million to be injected into the project. July 2009. July 2 weeks after, 17th July, AMA to quit by December. AMA to crack whip on Sodom and Gomorrah. December 2009 has come and gone. You have another one. 6 months after this, government secures 68 million euro to desilt Korle Lagoon. Obviously, it didn't happen. 1 year after, we have daily graphic. President Mahama cut sword to start Accra flood management project. Obviously, that project hasn't happened. So the promises made by politicians, including the presidency, on flood control, let's do it.
1 minute. Thank you.
We didn't get to really have a thorough discussion of the broader flooding situation. I think we tended to zero in on...
Yes, because we did a lot of that last week.
The fuel,
we did a lot of that last week.
Yeah, so what I would say is that there's a bigger issue. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to, is it Ghana Connect? On
Ghana Connect,
Joy FM.
I heard you on Ghana Connect.
To take part in a discussion about the broader flooding situation. Trust me, there's a program in place to really do a proper assessment and to get all the stakeholders involved in trying to, once and for all, embark on a program to address the problem long term.
Mr. Ayaraga, it certainly should be once and for all, so that it does not become yet another promise that we will not be able to execute. Yesterday, when you were participating on Ghana Connect, I could hear the frustration in the voices of the people who were asking you questions. Some of them asking with what seemed to be outright disrespect. Some of them spiting and all sorts. Yet I discovered that you exercise such monumental patience in answering them. Next time, you know, they may take it beyond, you know.
It's a crisis situation, and the management of it requires a certain disposition, humility, accepting responsibility, and then trying to build public support for the initiatives that we need to take. On the disaster issue, Kweku was talking about the need to centralize. There is indeed a central account that has been created at the Regional Coordinating Council, and I just want the opportunity to mention it is a flood disaster relief account at NIB, and the account number is 110-205-4628-101. And so all contributions could go there. There is a commitment to provide very detailed account at the end of the day if money is dispersed from that account. I think that we should all
this is a reminder to those who are mobilizing that they should channel it.
Channel it. And so all those who, and all of us should be interested and follow up to make sure that there's a commitment to account to all of us in terms of the use of...
Thank you very much.